Hello my friends, and hopefully to some new followers after a rather unusual situation that happened to me this week. I had a journalist from the Australian Financial Review reach out to me because she had seen a video that I had posted quite a few months ago on why I choose to invest in shares rather than in property. And obviously I live in a van, so that's one of the reasons. But I thought on the back of that article, why not let's go a bit deeper into the reasons why I live in a van and I choose to live in a van rather than investing in property. So I think one of the reasons that the journalist found my story interesting is because I do have a background in finance. I started off as a bookkeeper and I wound up building up my own bookkeeping company. I had about 9 staff and 40 odd clients at any one time, and then I sold that company off. I have also run businesses, been a business manager. I have volunteered on different boards as treasurer. So I've got that background, and my current position is also in finance too. So I am a little bit outside the square. I do work remotely full time, and that was always my intention when I moved into the van, because I still want to be able to earn an income and invest in my future and just fund this lifestyle that I love so much. Now, whilst I do have that background, I am not a financial advisor. I am not a registered accountant. This is not financial advice. This is purely just my story. So please take everything I say with a pinch of salt and apply it to your own situation, because my lifestyle may not fit yours. So a bit of background about me for those of you that don't know. 2018, I did try out van life with my partner at the time, and we went to Canada and we travelled Canada for 2 months. And I fell in love with the lifestyle. I'm a real adventurer at heart. I love the outdoors. I love travel. And the idea that you can have everything that you own, you've got your own bed, it was just, I love that. It's such a freeing lifestyle. So when I came back to Australia and I settled into a house again and got a job again, it just felt wrong. It was really hard for me to get back into the swing of things, and I did for a while. But my relationship broke up, we sold our property, and I wound up moving down south of Perth, and something was still just missing, and I was just dreaming about van life again. So I wound up just going, bugger it, let's do it. So I looked online one night, I found my van Gypsy in Margaret River. I was living in Dunsborough, and I wound up just purchasing her that week. And I think after about 3 or 4 weeks, I did the fit out and off I went. So it was about late October 2021 that I started van life. So I've been doing it for over 4 years now. I didn't have a job, a remote job, when I started. I was living off savings for quite a few months, for about 9 months I think. And I just had faith that I would find the job that suited me. And so now I have this amazing remote job that enables me to carry on this lifestyle. And I understand that this lifestyle is not going to be for everybody. It is unusual, but I'm one of those people that's always thought outside the square and done things my own way. So that's what I'm doing. But I am one of those people that also takes calculated risks. I've got the left brain, right brain. I'm an artist, but also I work with numbers. So when I moved into the van, I figured, well, if I don't enjoy it, then I can always just get another regular job and move back into a house and carry on my life. But I have just loved this life so much. And yeah, there are ups and downs, and I talk about those quite often on the channel. But for me, the positives have always outweighed the negatives with this life. I think that anything in life is going to come with positives and negatives, because that's life. Nothing is ever perfect. And I am 46 years old, so I'm Gen X. I grew up in that generation of you find a partner, you buy a house, you have children, you stay in that home your whole life, and that's a good investment and it's a safety net. And don't get me wrong, that's a perfectly beautiful thing for people a way for them to live, but it's just not who I am. Even when I lived in a house, I was moving every other year because I just get itchy feet. I need something different. And I have a daughter, she's almost 25, and she pointed out to me the other day that my van Gypsy is the longest home I've ever lived in. So I think prior to her, I'd been in a house for maybe 3 years. But yeah, I've been in Gypsy for over 4. So she provides me that constant change of scenery. So I think that it's important to follow who you are and what you want to do in life, but you can still do that and make conscious choices to still keep yourself financially sound. When I moved into the van, I did reach burnout. I had been living quite a highly stressful life, and that was just because of who I am. Worrying about things I didn't need to worry about, and being in high pressure jobs that probably weren't for me. So it was more about a refocus on what is important to me as well. And living in a van has just, I've released so much responsibility from my life. So I don't have to look after a home, and doing that on your own is a lot of work on top of everything else you need to do. So, doing all the gardening, cleaning the house, doing maintenance issues on it. It was just responsibility I didn't want in my life. And I have had investment properties before, and even they bring a lot of work with them. So I've had property managers that weren't fabulous. I've had tenants that weren't fabulous. And all of that, me personally, I take that stress on, and I just don't want that stress. So that's why I really just didn't want to focus on property again. So the fact I just don't want to live in a house. I could have a property and have it rented out, but I just didn't want that responsibility. And the other thing is, it's also a really big upfront cost. So, and if you look at it over the long term, as an investment property, yes, the tenants would likely pay off a lot of that interest to the bank. But when you look at the home loan over a long term, if you're paying that off over 25, 30 years, you're actually paying the bank way more for that property than what you've purchased it for. And I understand you will have a capital gain on that property over those years, but I think you might find that it might even itself out at the end. So it's one of those things, I think that it does create that safety net for you. So especially in a property market like we are in at the moment. So in Perth, it's just gone ridiculous. Property prices have doubled in the last 5 years. So it's going to be really hard for young people to get into that market. And I guess that leads me into the topic of discussion about, could van life be the answer for some people to get into the property market? Because I mentioned in the article that I actually save about 50%, if not more, of my salary, and that's not including YouTube income. So, it's a great way to try and save a deposit. The other thing is, if you buy a property and you look at it as an investment property, so you stay in the van and you rent it out, you can actually get a higher loan because you've got that rental income as well. Now, I'm not saying that this is what you should do, because everybody is different and there are risks associated with that. So if you get higher loans and you don't have a tenant, you've got to put up those mortgage repayments. So, take it into your personal circumstance whether you can cover those. But there are advantages like that. Now, with investment loans, obviously the interest rate is going to be higher as well. So there's a lot of different variables there, and I think you really need to just look at all those variables, but it might be an option. It might be a way for you to get into the property market if you're struggling at the moment. If you are looking at van life and you have a property, it's not something where I would suggest that you sell that property. I think at the moment, you might sell it and make a massive profit off it. But then if you try to get back into the property market later, it will be extremely difficult to do that, I think. I'm not a real estate expert, and maybe it is just a bubble at the moment and it may burst, but it may not. So yeah, you've got to look at it, your own personal circumstance, and look at the risks involved. And look, I am 46, so this is probably the last point in my life at which I could get a loan from the bank, because I only have so much life left to live where I can pay that loan off. But the way I look at it is, if I am saving as much as I'm saving and I'm investing that into shares, then if I do want a house later in life, I will have that money there to buy one. And I know there is a risk because we don't know what the property market is going to do, but I figure if you're investing in shares, you're still keeping up with the property market and how that's going. Because when I looked at the property market versus shares, it was a number of years ago now, and I did it over a 10-year period, and really it kind of came out in the wash at the end. Look, share markets are going to boom and they're going to bust, and property markets are going to boom and they're going to bust. So I think that I feel like the risk is calculated enough that I will still have made the same sort of capital gain in shares that I would have made in property over the same sort of period. And look, I know nothing in life is certain, but I just like to live life a bit different. I like to live more in the moment because it has worked so well for me to this point. I have loved every single minute of living this lifestyle. I love to travel. I love to be out of my comfort zone. I have learnt so much in living this lifestyle. I've become more confident. I've become more independent. I've found I trust myself more. There's so many advantages to living the way I do. And I understand this lifestyle is certainly not going to be for everybody. The reason I love it so much is because I don't have to commute to work every day. I don't have to clean a home. I don't have to look after a garden. So it gives me so much more time to focus on my health, my passions, just enjoying life. When I can be out here working in an environment like this, and also because I'm not working in an office, I don't have all those distractions, so I can get work done a lot faster too. But it does just give me that time, like at the end of the day, because I don't have to commute, I don't have to, come home and cook for a family. There are people in different circumstances. I'm just in that part of my life. My child is grown, I'm single, I've got all the time in the world to do with what I choose. So I can sit there and just do some artwork, I can swing in my hammock, I can do YouTube videos, and I've just fallen in love with doing YouTube videos, to be honest. And look, I am absolutely no expert at the share market. It is something new to me. My mum is extremely talented in that area. She has she's managed her own self-managed super fund for years and done very well in that. So she's given me some guidance. So I am a reasonable newbie to the share market, but I've just enjoyed it, I think, because it's learning something new. I am interested in finance, so even though I am an artist at heart, it does still interest me, playing with money and making it work and putting it in the right place. And the share market is kind of cool because it's quite variable. Like, it is still long term, but you can still look at the trends and the markets and see what's going on. I do just invest in local Australian markets at the moment. But yeah, it's just, for me, it's an investment that what's the word I'm looking for? It piques my curiosity. It keeps me interested, for something that, like a property, even though it's long term, for me it's kind of boring, It's one place, it's a sit and forget. Yeah, so I just get a bit bored with it after a while. And some of the other strategies for long term and into retirement, because, hopefully I'm not too far off retirement, that would be nice. But, by having a actual job, I'm still investing in my super fund. I have it in high growth because I don't really have to worry about what I'm leaving behind. I don't have any major debts that need to be paid off if I go. I do still have insurances in there so that, my daughter is still left with something, but I can still put it in high growth because I'm not really worried about risk at this point in my life. And so, yeah, I've got my super fund, I'm contributing to that, and then that is gaining interest in there as well. And then YouTube. So YouTube has been a passion project for me, but it is also a bit of a retirement plan because, as you can tell, I don't like to sit still. I'm a bit of a high achiever. I like to keep doing and creating, and even when I have businesses, like, it's a creative process building a business. And so YouTube has been that. It's been a massive learning curve for me, but I've enjoyed just the filming part of it too. Like, I did invest a fair bit in the early days in cameras. I've invested money in my website, and I sell prints of my artwork now through my website. They're available if you go through my link. So I've diversified different sources of income as well. So I've got the prints available on my website. I've got YouTube income. So with YouTube, you make money through AdSense. So when I post a video, there'll be ads throughout that video, and then I make a portion of that ad revenue. And there's also things like affiliate links. So you'll see that I've got a bunch of links to different products that I use in the van, and so when someone clicks on that link and they purchase it, then I make a portion of that sale as well, which it can vary between 3%, sometimes up to 10-15%. But generally 3 to 5% is where that sits at. There's also opportunities to have sponsorship deals. And look, I've chosen to not do that to this point, purely because I do get a lot of offers of people wanting me to promote their products on my videos, but just don't feel comfortable with it at the moment, because I don't want to promote a product that I am not fully invested in. If I haven't used it and I don't love it, then I don't really want to promote it. And I just don't want this channel to become a sales channel. It's not what it's about. And ultimately I should just be promoting my own products anyway. But I'm happy to put the links in there, and if people choose to and they want to and they're interested in what I'm using, and so I'll only put links in there for products I'm using that I love. And I just feel like that sits a lot better with me. I've had one company reach out, and I was tempted because they were going to gift me an expensive product to promote, and I really did want to try that product out, but there was a contract associated with that, and when I read through the contract, it just didn't really sit well. And it's no shade on that company. Like, I understand, you don't want to be giving out free products without getting the right things in return. But yeah, it's just not, for me, that's working for someone else again, and I want to have creative control. And so YouTube is a long-term plan for me too, because the videos that you post can still keep making money well into the future. I've got videos I'm making money off that I posted ages ago, like a year or two ago. And there are some I've taken down because as I've progressed with YouTube, I feel like I've gotten better in my videos. So there's some old ones I look at and I cringe at a little bit. But one of the surprising things that I have found with YouTube is the community. And I feel like not only am I creating a space for others that want to live this lifestyle or are curious about it, but it's also making me feel a little bit more accepted in the way I want to live too. So that was something quite surprising and I didn't quite expect. And in the article with the Australian Financial Review, we did talk a bit about the type of people that follow my channel. And so it is about 50-50, I get, men and women. But I was so surprised at the amount of women that are my age or older who want to, I suppose you sort of get to that point in your life where you might not have responsibilities anymore. You've raised your children, and so they just want something different for themselves, and they want to focus on themselves. And so a lot of them are just really curious about this lifestyle. And so I was really surprised at the amount of women that want to do it, and I think that's amazing, and I love that. And I love that people are thinking outside the square. The fact that the Australian Financial Review reached out to do this article, I think, is amazing. And I know I'm putting myself out there for judgment because it's a whole new demographic of people that might look at me and think, what on earth are we glorifying living in a van now? And that's fine if that's your opinion, no problem. It doesn't worry me. But I think it's great to just open that conversation up because, I think it's so important, and I talk a lot on this channel about living a life that's true to yourself and not worrying about what other people think. And I know that's really hard, but I think, and it was definitely a choice for me, a turning point for me to whether I chose to accept doing this article, because it will mean that people I know will find me from a previous life, you know what I mean? Like on my YouTube channel, it's quite a unique demographic that I have been like talking to and communicating with and putting myself out there to. And it's been a very, very accepting community. It's so wonderfully welcoming. But it has been very niche, and so now this is opening up, and so obviously the Australian Financial Review has a lot more viewers than my channel does, so I am opening myself up to that judgment once again. But I've sort of gotten to that point in my life where I don't care because I'm happy. I recently had a follower talk about what wealth actually means, and I think that does it actually mean financial? If you are financially well off but you're not happy, are you wealthy? It's probably a whole other video that I will touch on, I think. But yeah, I'm confident in myself now and the way I want to live and the lifestyle I want to live, and be damned what others think. So let's touch base on some of the big advantages of living in a van. Obviously, saving is the first advantage. So I don't have any rent to pay, I don't have a mortgage to pay, I'm not paying utilities, rates and taxes, any of that. I actually don't even pay for gas. I only cook with electricity. I have solar power, so my battery charges from solar but also from when I run the van. I use a lot less water than a house would normally use. I have two 20-litre tanks. I also carry 30 litres on my roof. I fill those up either if I'm staying in a caravan park, at family or friends' houses, just various spots. Sometimes petrol stations you can fill them up. So yeah. The second biggest advantage and the most favourite one for me is the travel side of it. So I have so much freedom. I can choose to be at home in Perth and spend time with my daughter and my family and friends, or I can choose to travel and be on the road and see new places. And since I've been doing van life, which has been over 4 years now, I have gone backwards and forwards a couple of times from east to west coast. I haven't done the top end yet. I am a little bit nervous to do that on my own, but mind you, I was extremely nervous to cross the Nullarbor on my own, and that was completely fine. I've done it quite a few times now. But the amount of Australia I have seen since I started is unbelievable. And to be honest, I kind of feel like I'm still only just scratching the surface. I have been in WA for most of last year, and I will be leaving WA probably April, May this year to go back over east for a while. Typically the last couple of years I've been in Queensland for winter, and I've just loved that so much because I love to hike and snorkel, and so spending winter in Queensland, you get to hike all these amazing, like gorgeous rainforests, which I'm not used to being from WA. You know, it's a lot more barren and bushy, you know, which, you know, that's not a bad thing. It's beautiful. I love that contrast. And I think that's why we're so truly blessed to be in Australia, because the whole country is so different. And the third thing is that you get to follow the weather, you know, so I do get to be in Queensland where it's a bit warmer and muggier during winter, but then I can come home to WA and I can just snorkel the coastline during summer. I can go up north, you know, during winter here as well, and you've got the beautiful Ningaloo Reef there to snorkel. So it's just that freedom, you know, you can almost be anywhere. And as I said before, I get to focus more on my health and my well-being and the things that I love and I'm passionate about, because I have the time to do those things. So I can wake up in the morning and go down the beach, and I can just meditate and have my cup of tea and just ground, because I love being out in nature. That's my happy place, and that's the biggest advantage to van life for me, is that I wake up and I'm immediately outdoors. I go to bed and I've just been outdoors. I can watch I've got a skylight up there that I can watch the stars from as I go to sleep. So that's what I love. That's the biggest advantage to van life for me. But as the yin yang of life, there is always a downside to an upside. And so some of the downsides to van life are lack of community. So especially if you're traveling solo, it can get a bit lonely. I don't feel that as much because I'm a very solitary person anyway. But if you're not, like when you've got a job and you're going to a job, or you're going home to a house that's got your family in it, it is a sense of community. And, you know, we are connected beings. We're meant to be connected beings. So when you're living a solitary life in a van, you can lack that. And so it can make you feel also a little bit disjointed, because you don't really feel like you belong anywhere sometimes, because you don't just have one place to go home to every day. You're constantly thinking about your water supply, your power supply, your food supply, where you're going to park that night. And I mean, that's why I come to these campgrounds though, because then I can sit here for a couple of weeks and just make the campsite my own. And that gives me that grounding that I feel I need. And not all costs are lower. I do spend a lot on fuel. That is my biggest cost. I do still have, you know, vehicle insurance, health insurance. all those sort of other things, you know, food costs, all those things, they're still part of daily life. But yeah, petrol is definitely my biggest expense because I am a vanner who does travel a fair bit. And look, all of this is not me being anti-property ownership by any means. You know, like I said, it could actually be the answer for you if you're trying to get into the property market. Life is different for everybody. Everybody has their own expectations on life, what they love in life. People might absolutely hate being out camping. That's fair. I get it. There's snakes, there's spiders, there's mozzies. It can be hot, it can be cold, it can be windy. And so you do have to deal with all of those elements of nature, but that's what I love dealing with. I actually, last night I could hear this noise getting closer and closer to my van, and I thought, okay, it must be a kangaroo. And so this kangaroo has just popped up next to my van, and I've just spent some time with that kangaroo filming it. And those moments to me are absolutely precious. Like, that's why I live the lifestyle, you know. There was if you go back through my other videos, there was a day I was down the beach, and it's been by far one of my most memorable experiences, where I just happened to bump into a couple of people while these whales were going through, and I had my drone up filming the whales, and we all decided at that point we would go out on our sups. And we went out on our sups and just got in the path of the whales, and I had 3 whales go underneath my board, and it was the most magical experience I've ever had in my life. And I wouldn't have had that if I wasn't living this lifestyle and being outdoors and being in those moments. So I hope this video has given you a bit of background on why I choose to live this life. I understand it is a bit different, and I think that, you know, success is different for everybody. I feel so unbelievably successful in my life because I'm living my dream, and that dream is not for everybody, and that's fine. But I'm all about opening up these discussions just to try and think a little bit differently, think a bit outside the square, and just accepting everybody in the way that they want to live. Life doesn't have to be so rigid. We don't have to go by societal norms and everything that we choose to do in life. There are other options out there, and sometimes you might choose an option that doesn't work out, and that's fine. You just redirect and try something else. And who knows, it may be in a few years' time I might tire of this life. I don't think I will. I have this dream of being able to live this life all over the world. But I think in the meantime, I'm extremely happy where I'm at. I think that I'm still thinking about my future and planning for my future, whilst also living in the moment. So if you are wanting to live this lifestyle, I hope I've given you permission to do so. And if not, that's okay too. Many happy travels.
Waiting, bracing for the wave, stay in, face it come what may. How come? Who's it really for? Are we really keeping score? Lately, I've been up lately. Come to think of it, my thinking is deadly. Wishing I could run before I learn to walk, but maybe it's okay to not know it all. Feeling 2 feet tall, I can't seem to shake it off.